have you ever read Shakespeare and thought, what? What the? Is this English? Well, you're not alone. Native English speakers also think that when reading Shakespeare. Shakespeare did have a very interesting way of writing. Today, we are diving into the rich, complex world of William Shakespeare, and we're translating his works into English. Join us as we break down the bard's most famous quotes, let's say, into easy-to-understand, modern, real English. So stick around, and in this video, you will learn how to understand the most famous phrases of Shakespeare, or at least how we would say those today. My name, of course, is Professor Rich, and if you're joining us live, you should say hello in the chat over there. And if you're watching afterwards, then, well, it's a good time to smash that like button and hit subscribe, because you've definitely found the coolest place on the internet to learn English. So, take a look at this. The question is it worth living or not? Do you know this famous line? Who says it? And what are the original words? So, do you know this famous line? Who says it? And what are the original words? The question is it worth living or not? The question is it worth living or not? We can see there a picture of the character from Shakespeare's famous performance, famous play. We can see him with his smartphone listening on his what do we call them? Earphones, right. That's right, Sonia. It is to be or not to be. That is the question. That is the question. Not this, but that. To be or not to be. The question is it worth living or not? And the original Shakespeare says to be or not to be. By the way, that's a good way to learn about the infinitive plus two. To be or not to be. It's a good way to learn where to put not when you have an infinitive plus two. Are you ready for this next one? This next one's a little bit spicy, so I want to make sure that we've been streaming for, it's supposed to be 5 minutes, I think, or something. Like 5 minutes. Well, let's be careful. This is from Othello. Do you guys know where I'm going with this? So, famous play by Shakespeare called Othello. And I'm going to tell you the original quote. I want you to translate it into modern English. Are you ready? I am one, sir, that comes to tell you your daughter and the Moor are now making the beast with two backs. Oh dear. I am one, sir, that comes to tell you your daughter and the Moor are now making the beast with two backs. Making the beast with two backs? Can't imagine what that means. Do you know this famous line? How can we translate that into modern English? You can have a go. Try not to be too rude. Oh, that's a good way of putting it, Sonia. I quite like that. I'm telling you that your daughter and the Moor are in love. I don't think it's quite love, though. This is my version. I'm the person who's coming to tell you that your daughter and the Moor are sleeping together. That is my version. The line, of course, is supposed to be funny, though. Othello does have some funny moments. Let's move on. We're going to talk about Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet's a good Shakespearean play. It's probably my favourite, to be honest. I know I should say Hamlet, but yeah, Hamlet's all right. I like Romeo and Juliet, though. So let's take a look at some famous lines from Romeo and Juliet. Oh, look! They're in modern English. So take a look at these lines from Romeo and Juliet. They are in modern English. Do you know the original lines? Do you know the original lines? I don't expect anyone to know the exact words or even most of them, but do you know any of them? Do you know any of the original lines from Romeo and Juliet? So we have, we're wasting time. To hell with both of you. What's the point of a name? A rose would still smell nice, even if it were called something else. Stay quiet. There's a light coming from the eastern window. It's Juliet. She's like the sun coming up. Have you got a problem, mate? Have you got a problem, mate? Have you got a problem, mate? You got a problem, mate? Good night, good night. I don't want to go. Can I keep saying good night until it's morning? So these are the modern English phrases. Does anyone know what the original ones are? Yes, that's right, Manuel. These are the modern English translations. And I wanted to know if anyone knows the original phrases. Actually, I'm going to show you the original phrases. Here you go. And I would like you to try and match these. So you can see on the left, we have the original phrases, and on the right, we have the modern English. I just need to make an adjustment there. Okay, so original phrases on the left, modern English on the right, and I'd like you to match the original phrases to the modern English. Notice the modern English, as Manuel said there, have you got a problem, mate? Shall I read the original ones? Are you ready, folks? Are you ready to brush up on your Shakespearean pronunciation? But soft. What light from yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? A plague over both your houses. Good night, parting is such sweet sorrow, that I might say good night till it be morrow. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. We burn daylight. All right, folks, let's see some answers. We can see the answers there from Sleepwalker, and they're all correct. Well done. So number one, but soft. What light from yonder window breaks? So, but soft is Romeo telling himself to be quiet. So he says to himself, stay quiet, Romeo. He's talking to himself. Stay quiet. Oh, there's a light coming from the eastern window. It's Juliet. And she's like the sun coming up. In the original, he says, it is the east and Juliet is the sun. Number two, do you bite your thumb at us, sir? Which actually is, have you got a problem, buddy? So this is actually the scene where someone kind of gestures or spits at someone else. A plague over both your houses is, yeah, to hell with you. And the others are quite obvious. We burn daylight's an interesting one, isn't it? An interesting way of saying we're wasting time. We burn daylight. All right, so that was Romeo and Juliet. Let's move on then and have a look at Hamlet. So, here's some famous lines from Hamlet. These are actually the original lines, and I want you to try and translate these into modern English. So, here's the original lines from Hamlet, and can you try, either in the chat or on a notepad, try to translate these lines into modern English? I'm going to read those right now. So, number one, though this be madness, there's method in it. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. This, above all, to thine own self be true. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. Frailty, thy name is woman. Oh, I quite like that one, Sleepwalker, for number one. There's a reason behind chaos, this chaos or strange behaviour. I think for number one, I want to say something like, stay with me, because I'm going somewhere with this. Stay with me, because I'm going somewhere with this. It's like you're saying to someone, whoa, 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 don't panic. I've got a plan. Be true to your own beliefs. I think it's actually be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Not only your own beliefs, but in fact, be true to who you are. Denmark is not a good country. That's not quite right, Zoya. They're not saying that Denmark is not a good country. They're saying that there's something bad happening in Denmark. Not that Denmark is bad, but that something bad is happening there. What about did we have the lady doth protest too much, methinks? The lady doth protest too much, methinks. It's something like she's making such a big deal out of it that I think she's guilty. Only someone who's guilty would protest so much about it. And methinks just means I think. It's what I think. All right, so we've seen a couple of quotes from Shakespeare. Let's have a look at some phrases or words from those quotes and see if you can just translate just these words or phrases into English, modern English. So take a look at these phrases there. Could we translate these Shakespearean phrases into modern English? What do these things mean in modern English, do you think? Unfortunately. That's a pretty good one, yeah. It basically is that. That's not too bad at all, unfortunately. I think I would say something like... It's something like... What a defeat. Or we're defeated. Or it's lost. Or maybe all is lost. Or it's a shame. So it's something like a shame, a pity, defeated feeling. Okay. Soft, subtle. I don't know about subtle. Something else, methinks. He actually means it as quiet. So Romeo talks to himself. And he says, quiet. Because he's spying on the window of a young lady, the kind of behavior which will today get you arrested, Romeo. What about yonder? Yonder is over there. So yonder window is like the window over there. The window over there. Bite your thumb at someone is basically insult someone. We might say flick the bird. Flash the V sign. Gesture rudely. Gesture rudely. Burn daylight is waste time. We know that. Parting is saying goodbye. Thy or thine is your. And methinks is I think. So there's our Shakespearean phrases there. Absolutely fantastic. In Russian, we put the stress on the second syllable in Romeo. So you say Romeo. Methinks, it seems to me, or I think, yes, that is absolutely right. Okay, I'm amazed at how quickly the material went today, folks. So 20 minutes of Shakespeare, that's what we had. And we blasted through it. So, your favourite lines from Shakespeare in the chat, go for it. What are your favourite lines from Shakespeare? And let's talk about them. Shakespeare is very interesting. Shakespeare invented a lot of the words and structures that he used. So, he really was an artist, not so much of a scientist, but very much an artist who was using the language like an art, not necessarily following the rules of grammar, which at the time didn't really exist anyway, and they don't really exist now except in the imaginations of dictionary writers. Ah, yes, the fault, dear Brutus. That's an interesting one. Let's get that one up. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. We are the underlings. That we are the underlings. A line from Julius Caesar. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. We are... That we are underlings. So let's have a look at the meaning for that. Luck isn't to blame for our faults. It's us, dear Brutus. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more, and is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Yeah, it's a good one, that. I think something so poetic, it doesn't seem right to actually translate it. Kind of good how it is, isn't it? But basically it's something like life sucks and makes no sense. No, it's like life sucks, makes no sense, and means nothing. It's something like that, right? Yes, all the world's a stage. All the world's a stage and we're actors. Basically saying everyone's acting. Everyone's acting their life. Kind of defending the actors. All right, folks. We are now on to question time. You can download the notes from today's class. Sorry, I completely misjudged the material for today. I thought it would last significantly longer and it didn't. I am still a little bit ill as well, but this happens sometimes. So we'll move on to question time. Any questions that you have about English, about today's class, or just about anything I can help you with? I do know a little bit about education as well. I'm not an expert in English literature, to be perfectly honest. Part of my job actually doesn't involve as much English literature as you might think, because what I teach is communicative language teaching. I teach English as a communication tool, and you don't actually need a lot of literature knowledge to do that. And a lot of the time, we don't work with literature very much. Even when students need to improve their writing, the reason for that is that they want to pass an exam, or they're studying at university, or they're applying for jobs. And in none of those situations is it particularly useful to study literature. However, literature can be beneficial in terms of extensive reading, which is the idea that you... Basically, it's the idea that you read for enjoyment and you do it a lot, and therefore you gain the benefit of improving your reading skills and vocabulary in English. I am a big advocate of extensive reading, particularly for people who enjoy reading. If you enjoy reading, it's something you absolutely should do, but don't feel that you have to do it. So Pavia says the implication of that quote from Shakespeare is that people should not blame their misfortunes, failures, or positions in life on external forces like fate. Instead, they should look at their actions. That's what I said, isn't it? Luck isn't to blame, it's us. Listen to many, speak to a few. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Could we do it another way, though? Listen to few, speak to many. That's what social media influencers do, right? Listen to few, speak to many. Yeah, I got my timing wrong today, Pallavi. I've been a bit busy recently, plus ill. And I deeply underestimated the amount of material I had for today. And plus, no one seems to really have any questions. I will remind you, of course, of the homework. This is the homework for the 27th. So you have one more week to do this. The idea is to tell a story in 2 minutes. Choose one of the following types of sentence and use only that type of sentence for the whole story. So, for example, if you choose the passive, then your story should only be the passive. For example, let's get this right. So this is kind of the idea with a passive. A man was being talked to on the bus. His name was Tim. Long hair was had by him, and a blue robe was being worn. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. A hero was needed. One of my stories, 4 minutes. Yeah, can be. Seems weird. It is weird, but that's the fun, isn't it? It's a fun activity. Do you know a good way I can begin to hear rhymes in English when I'm reading poetry? It's a little bit tough. You need to have a good knowledge of sound spelling relationships. The other thing to say is that sometimes with poetry, people actually change the pronunciation of words in order to make them rhyme. Like, let me make it clear I don't want to be but that's not doing anything. Let me change it. Let me change that a minute. I sat on my chair and looked at the world. The world, right? So sometimes people kind of change the sound a little bit to suit. But I think that learning poetry and learning to pronounce poetry is a great way to improve your pronunciation. Rich, should the boys study Shakespeare originally or New English at high schools? Oh, I don't know, Manuel. I have no idea what they're studying at high schools these days. I mean, I have really no idea. I think it's always good to learn the classics. It's always a positive thing to learn the classics. And I think there's a good reason why we should resist too much change. Pavia said, Hamlet's instruction to the players to hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to nature. What role should art play in society? Should art reflect society's flaws or serve as a form of escapism? To hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to nature. I don't know if when Shakespeare wrote that about Hamlet, first of all, I don't know if he meant it in the way that it could be interpreted today as the idea of actors showing people what they're doing. Because also to nature, but not to humanity. I think that Shakespeare was confrontational in some of his writing. Certainly there were elements of politics and religion and so on. But I think in Shakespeare we see a broad range. It's like he dabbled with all kinds of ideas. And I think when people talk about how art is too political these days, I think they're talking about how political people are going into art with primarily political motives, as in they want to tell a message, and a story is just a way of doing that. Whereas for Shakespeare, he wants to tell a story and there's a bit of politics thrown in for fun. And I think that's a different idea. I think lots of traditional artists had a similar idea as well. Anawat says, have you had any experience with failing to improve your students? If so, what factors contribute to that? That's a really interesting one, Anawat. For sure. Yeah. Yep. For sure. So there's definitely a few things we can say about that. I think, first of all, if the student isn't really committed enough or interested enough, then you're dead in the water, basically. Yeah, it's that's a really tough one, and overcoming that is really tough as well. If someone comes in and they're not that committed or interested, you got a problem. It's tough. I feel sorry for people who have to teach students who don't want to learn. So that's a problem. Then we say if the student doesn't really have enough time or energy to learn, that's a problem. And there can be problems like if the student doesn't have a lot of contextual knowledge or life experience, that can also be a problem, or is open to that. Because if someone is very closed, yeah, that's what I really mean. If the student is very closed and doesn't have a lot of knowledge reference points, for example, if they're uneducated, I don't want to say just uneducated, because I've had students who are uneducated but very good students, but you do get some that just don't know anything. And when someone doesn't know anything, it's really tough because you have to teach them all kinds. Imagine doing a lesson about Shakespeare or doing an English lesson with some stuff about Shakespeare, but they don't know who Shakespeare is and they don't know where England is or that England has a king or what a country really is. You know, you get people like that. And it's really difficult to teach someone like that. So that's another one. If the teacher fails to take the time to a teacher fails to take the time to actively measure or engage with the student's progress. And all teachers are guilty of that sometimes. But especially this can happen in group classes. That sometimes you have students who sit at the back and you speak to them sometimes, but not enough. So you don't realize how little they're actually engaging with the class. Engagement's so important. And so that can be an issue. That can be an issue. I think when I first started teaching, I think I mistaught quite a lot of people and certain things. But it's unavoidable that as you gain more experience, you will disagree with earlier versions of your own teaching. And then long-term consistency is very important. So if someone kind of jumps in and out of learning a language, then I think they suffer for that. So that's tough. That's a big one as well. The time. You can see small improvements over the short term, but it's all about the long-term improvement. Language is a long game. Well, I used to write songs, Sleepwalker. Not so much poems, but I did used to write songs. Do you want to hear some of my songs? I'm not going to sing it. Maybe I'll sing it one time, but here's the lyrics. So it's The Boss Is. I wrote this when I was 22, I think. But I remember the lyrics because we used to play it in our band. Notice the rhyming with life and strife. Face and place. Oh dear, we've got a bad word, folks. We have a bad word. So, yeah, my band was an indie rock band, so, you know, we had some bad words, but okay. And then we have the chorus. There you go. If you want some help, the answer's no. And there's nowhere left to go. Where do you go to hide and curl up and cry? So, that's 2 verses and a chorus from one of my songs, which was kind of the main song of my band in just after university. Alia says, how to be as creative as Shakespeare. Creativity is the ability to think differently. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you can't be creative. Being creative is not the same as being wrong, but you have to be prepared to try something new. So, the creative attitude. There is no wrong answer. The creative attitude is there is no wrong answer. So that's the point, Aulia. Try, 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 try. When you write a story, don't try to write a perfect story. Just try to write a story about whatever. Just try, try, try. That's the key to creativity. Try different ideas. And develop your imagination. You have to spend time thinking about things. Spending time in your imagination, imaginary worlds. That's how you do it. In Romeo and Juliet, where Juliet asks what's in the name, that was she called it means was sweet. So what defines true love? Is it based on names, appearances, or something deep? Names, appearances, or something deep? But I don't think Juliet was talking about anything when she said that. I think in my opinion, I think what Juliet was saying is, actually, who cares about his name? He's hot. I think that's what she's saying. I don't think she's saying anything particularly fanciful about true love and whatever. Because she says like, oh, he's a Montague. That sucks. And then she's like, actually, he's hot. So who cares? And then she says, well, you know, like if you call a rose a Montague, it still smells like a rose. So if he's a Montague, he's still hot. Can we invert all the conditional sentences? For example, where are you? I wouldn't waste time. No, I don't think so. No, you can't actually. We do it with the second conditional like that, but when you want to do it with others, we have to use different words. So you can use should is a good way of doing it. Like if it rains, wait a minute. No, you can't. If I were you, I'd. Where are you? I'd. If I am hungry, I eat. I don't think there's any way to invert this, is there? I don't think there's any way you could invert the first clause of that conditional, the zero conditional. Am I hungry? Only when am I no. Should am I? No. Can anyone think of a way of doing inversion for that? No, I don't think so. Pavia claims she's heard me sing it. When did I sing it? Brevity of the soul of wit. Yes, nice. That's a good one. You're a Shakespeare fan, Manuel. Yeah, that's right. It's a Picasso quote, what I quoted before. Oh, thank you, Pavia. Why is it in quote marks, though? Who's saying that? But thank you. Oh, you can't see all of the lyrics? Well, it's not all the lyrics anyway. It's just, that's just 2 verses and a chorus. The song actually has 3 verses and 2 choruses. Question from Dan. I'll get ready, get my brain plugged in. Is it a gerund clause? It'll be good for him being with you. Can it be translated in another way? Being with you will be good for him. I think if I omit the pronoun for him, I don't need a comma. Wait, I need to pin this one. Let's try that again, Dan. It's deleted it. Okay, give me a second. Have I just deleted those comments? No. Good. It will be good for him being with you. Honestly, I hate this virus. It's really so annoying. I haven't been ill for this long for a long time. So it'll be good for him being with you. This is interesting. Yeah, for sure. If you write it, being with you will be good for him, then it's actually quite simple. It's a noun, and it's simply a gerund being used as a subject. That's it. And the sentence is passive. It's pretty simple. And no, you definitely do not need a comma. Excuse me. You don't need any comma. You don't need a comma in any... Wait, be good for him. Yeah, you don't need a comma at any point there. And then the other one, it will be good for him. It's interesting. It's interesting because it's the same form as something like it's nice, this cheese, like that, right? And it's what I would call an informal and conversational structure. But I actually think this one is as well. It will be good for him being with you. I think it's the same structure where we are basically clarifying what we mean when we say it, And we're doing that by using this noun, because it's not even a clause, it's just a noun. Just a noun after a comma. So it's a bit weird. It's definitely an informal conversational structure. But that's all it is as far as I can tell. Inversion for the third. Yeah, you can do inversion for the third. Yeah, absolutely. You can. You're right. Oh, I know. You can say something like this, I think. No, not really. No. No, it would be if I am. Never mind. I do eat healthy food, although my sleep is a bit not so great. Ginger, eh? I've got some ginger. I've eaten some ginger this week, actually. Oh, like that. It'll be good being with you. It'll be good. It'll be good being with you. It'll be good being with you. You know, the thing about that, Dan, is there's sort of two grammar structures that can be. It can be the one where I say, like, it's nice, this cheese. But then there's also, it's nice. Yeah, it's nice being with you. Yeah, I see what you mean now. There's something going on there. Yeah, where this is like a reduced clause of it's nice when I'm with you, isn't it? So you've got an overlap of two different grammar forms that you can use. So for your original sentence of it'll be good for him being with you, I actually think it'll be good for him being with you. I actually think you can use that without a comma. It'll be good for him being with you when he's with you. I actually think we can omit the comma and do it like that. Let me just look into that. Yeah, you can, and with no comma, just like that, with no comma, and it's a reduction of that. So it's a gerundial phrase, which I think you've asked about before, a gerundial phrase which replaces the relative clause. I can't figure out your thoughts about Picasso. Me neither, actually. You do seem to have something against Picasso, Manuel, don't you? I've heard you criticize Picasso before. Ah, you think Picasso's overrated? Yeah, I see. People talk about Picasso too much. I get it. It's like Shakespeare. Actually, I like Shakespeare. I didn't used to, as a kid, I didn't really like Shakespeare, but now I'm an adult, I really like it. All right, everybody, my name has been Professor Rich. Thank you very much for joining me today. Make sure that you smash that like button and hit subscribe. Thank you very much for being here. I wish you all a lovely, lovely weekend, a lovely rest of your week. We stream live on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. UK and Saturdays at 1 p.m. UK, so don't miss it. Don't miss the next one. Thanks for all the support and keep improving your English. All right, folks, see you later now. Bye.